At exactly 2:17 a.m., the city lost power. Traffic lights blinked out mid-intersection. Elevators froze between floors. Entire towers of glass and steel fell into sudden darkness, their reflections dissolving into the rain-slick streets below. Inside the penthouse of Virex Tower, the most feared man in the underworld dropped to his knees. A silver pendant lay broken in his hand. Lyra was gone. No struggle, no forced entry, no camera footage, no digital trace. Like she had been erased from existence. Thunder rolled across the skyline, rattling the floor-to-ceiling windows. In the darkness, Kael Virex's eyes burned gold. "Seal every port," he whispered. Across the city, encrypted signals burst into motion. Helicopters lifted into the storm. Private security units flooded the streets. Surveillance networks went dark as his system seized control. By sunrise, an entire nation would feel the weight of his command. Because Kael Virex was not launching a war for power. He was tearing the modern world apart to find the woman who had softened his heart. And beneath his skin, something ancient stirred. Rain traced slow paths down the glass walls of the penthouse, blurring neon lights into streaks of color. The marble floor still held the faint warmth where Lyra had stood hours earlier, barefoot, laughing softly at his refusal to sleep. She had moved through his life like quiet light, unafraid of the darkness surrounding him. Kael rose slowly, closing his fist around the broken chain. Lyra never removed the pendant. He had given it to her on a night when gunfire echoed across the harbor, and she had pressed steady hands against a wound in his shoulder, scolding him for bleeding on her clean bandages. "You are not indestructible," she had murmured. No one spoke to him that way. No one touched him without fear. Yet she had leaned close, the scent of antiseptic and wild mint in her hair, her fingers warm against his skin while something fierce and unfamiliar tightened in his chest. From that night forward, the fortress of steel and silence he called home had begun to feel inhabited, alive. "Sir," came a voice through his earpiece, strained with unease. "All building exits were secure, no breach detected. Her biometric signature vanished at 2:16. It's like she dissolved into air." Impossible. Lyra was not someone who vanished. She stayed. She waited by the window when he returned before dawn. She brewed bitter herbal tea he pretended to hate. She rested her palm against his chest as if measuring the rhythm beneath his ribs, unaware that the ancient fire there responded only to her. His jaw tightened. Someone had taken her. And whoever dared had just declared war. He stepped onto the rain-soaked balcony, cold water soaking through his shirt as wind whipped across the skyline. Below, the city flickered in patches of darkness as his commands spread through its arteries. Power grids failed, airspace closed, financial networks froze mid-transaction, order collapsing at his will. Lightning split the clouds, reflected in eyes no longer entirely human. Heat surged beneath his skin, rising, restless, alive. For centuries, the bloodline of dragons had slept within the Virex family, sealed beneath bone and willpower. Tonight, grief was breaking the lock. Kael lifted the pendant to his lips, breath unsteady for the first time in years. "Find her," he murmured. Not to his soldiers, not to his network, but to the ancient fire awakening inside him. Because if the modern world could not return Lyra to him, he would burn it down until it did. By dawn, the city was moving, but not freely. Traffic flowed through controlled corridors, Airports remained closed under security review. News anchors spoke carefully, repeating official statements fed through channels Kael owned, influenced, or silenced. To the public, it was a systems failure. To the underworld, it was a warning. Lyra Virex had vanished, and the man who ruled the shadows was hunting. Kael had not slept. He stood in the private medical suite carved into the east wing of the penthouse, a room Lyra had insisted on building after the third time he returned home bleeding through a tailored suit. The cabinet still smelled faintly of antiseptic and wild mint. Her scent lingered in the air like a memory that refused to fade. On the counter lay neatly arranged gauze, surgical thread, and stainless instruments aligned with precise care. Nothing had been disturbed. Nothing except the absence that filled the room. He removed his shirt slowly, revealing the healing wound beneath his ribs, the last injury she had treated. His fingers hovered over the stitches. He had not allowed anyone else to touch them. The memory came uninvited. Lyra standing close enough that he could feel the warmth of her breath. "You need to sit still," she had said softly, pressing him back against the leather chair. "I am still." "You are glaring at the wall like it offended you." Her fingers brushed his skin as she cleaned the wound, and his muscles tightened instinctively, not from pain, but from the awareness of her closeness. She noticed. She always noticed. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "Yes," he had answered, but it wasn't the injury. It was the way her touch unraveled something carefully restrained inside him. Back in the present, Kael gripped the edge of the counter. Heat pulsed beneath his skin. Slow, rhythmic, alive. Since her disappearance, the sensation had intensified, his body temperature rising, his pulse heavier, his senses sharper. Ancient power responding to loss, responding to her absence. A soft chime broke the silence. "Sir," his head of security said through the comm, "we've intercepted a data fragment. Someone scrubbed her identity from 3 hospital databases 12 minutes before she vanished." Kael's eyes hardened. "Internal or external?" "Too clean to be random. Whoever did this knew exactly where to cut." A pause, then more carefully. "This wasn't an abduction of opportunity." "No, it was planned, targeted, deliberate." Kael closed his eyes, forcing one steady breath. Lyra's laughter echoed faintly in his memory, the quiet sound she made when he pretended not to understand her sarcasm. The way she leaned against the window reading at night. The warmth of her hand resting lightly against his chest once, falling asleep mid-sentence, trusting him completely. Trusting the monster the world feared. His control slipped. The lights above flickered. Glass vibrated in its frames. Heat surged through his veins like molten metal. He braced both hands against the counter, breathing through the wave. For centuries, the Virex bloodline had buried the dragon. Power restrained, instinct suppressed, fire contained beneath discipline and steel will. But the old texts had warned, the dragon does not wake for war. It wakes for the heart. Kael opened his eyes. Gold burned brighter now. "Find who erased her," he said quietly. Across the city, his network moved with renewed precision. Data vaults breached, private satellites redirected, black market intelligence activated. The hunt was no longer for a missing woman. It was for whoever dared touch what belonged to him. Kael pressed his palm over the healing wound beneath his ribs. He could still feel her there, warmth lingering like an imprint beneath bone and fire. His voice dropped to a whisper meant for no one. "Hold on, Lyra." Outside, storm clouds gathered again over the skyline, and deep within his chest, the dragon shifted, sensing the one soul capable of soothing the inferno rising inside him. The city buzzed with rumors by midday. Kael Virex, the untouchable, the untamed, the man who could collapse entire networks with a whisper, had made a public announcement that shook the elite. He was engaged. To Seraphine Marlowe, daughter of the most powerful corporate conglomerate in the country. The headlines blared with elegant photos of Kael in a tailored suit, arm in arm with a smiling, poised woman who carried the calm arrogance of someone born into power. Social media exploded. Markets shifted. Analysts speculated alliances and mergers. But no one knew the truth. The engagement was not for love. It was a strategy, a shield, a message to his enemies. The Dragon Lord was untouchable, unyielding, and now publicly aligned with power that could rival him. Lyra sat alone in a quiet cafe on the other side of the city. The hum of machines and low chatter around her could not mask the ache in her chest. She had watched him announce the engagement from a discreet corner, unseen. Her fingers clenched around the cup of bitter black coffee she had ordered. The warmth failed to reach her hands. For 3 years, she had shared stolen mornings, quiet nights, fleeting touches that lingered longer than they should. Each look, each gentle hand on his arm or the brief brush of a shoulder was a language they alone understood. And now he had chosen another. Her chest tightened, her vision blurred. She should have left him, should have walked away the night before when she realized the world he inhabited could never truly be hers. But leaving had never been easy. She had lingered, hoping, believing that maybe he would choose her in the end. The finality of the engagement shattered that hope. That night, the penthouse was empty, or so it seemed. Kael returned, suit pressed, hair slicked, mask of the composed billionaire firmly in place. But beneath that mask, the fire inside him roared. He found her absence not comforting, but intolerable. Every trace of her presence, the scent of mint and lavender, the faint indentation in the leather chair where she once leaned against him, the silver pendant now cold in his hand, screamed at him. She had not come to him that night, and she would not come. It was not rebellion, it was survival. Someone had taken her. And when he discovered who, Kael knew the consequences would consume everything in their path. Lyra awoke to darkness that smelled of damp stone and metal. Her wrists were bound with coarse rope, leaving red impressions across her skin. The faint hum of fluorescent lights flickered above, but no window offered a glimpse of the outside world. Her heart hammered in her chest as she tried to remember how she had arrived here. Her last memory, leaving the penthouse that night, alone, and now she was somewhere she could not escape. A soft, chilling voice broke the silence. "Ah, you're awake." Lyra's head snapped toward the sound. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, impeccably dressed, but with a presence that carried quiet menace. "Who are you?" she demanded, trying to steady her voice despite the fear curling in her stomach. "You're important," the figure said, smiling thinly. "Very important, and very dangerous." Her mind raced. Someone had orchestrated this, someone who knew exactly who she was, because she was not just Lyra the healer. She was the heart vessel. The ancient prophecy Kael had only begun to uncover whispered of a human capable of awakening the Dragon Lord's true form. She had been that vessel,
and someone had decided to take her before he could find her. Panic clawed at her chest. "What do you want from me?" she demanded. "Protection," the figure said smoothly. "From him." Lyra froze. "From Kael?" "Yes," they said, voice darkening. "You are tied to him, connected in ways you cannot yet understand. If he awakens fully, the world burns. We cannot allow it." Her stomach twisted. He had not found her yet, but she could feel his presence anyway. A heat, a pulse, something in the city that stirred whenever she moved or breathed. Kael's shadow loomed even here, even now. The captor's tone grew sterner. "Do not resist. Do not attempt to reach him. Your choices are no longer your own." Lyra sank back against the cold wall. Fear battled the strange longing that rose in her chest. Even from afar, Kael's obsession reached her. She could feel it, raw, desperate, consuming. He would stop at nothing. He had the power to tear the modern world apart if he had to, and her heart twisted at the thought of the destruction he could unleash. And yet, she had never loved anyone like him. Never had a touch linger so deeply. She had felt it in the library, in the medical suite, in fleeting glances across the penthouse at midnight. That heat beneath his skin, the intensity in his golden eyes, it had always drawn her in, terrifying and thrilling all at once. Now she was bound, trapped, and the pull of him was nearly unbearable. Through the flickering light, she whispered, almost to herself, "Kael, if you find me, I don't know if I can survive the fire you'll bring." Her captors did not hear her, but somewhere in the city, a pulse of heat and rage answered her words. The Dragon Lord was awake, and he would not rest until she was back in his arms. Kael Virex did not sleep that night, not in the penthouse, not in the private quarters he had built to feel untouchable, not even in the secure underground archive beneath the city, where he now stood among sealed vaults and stacks of forbidden texts that had survived centuries. He held the broken silver pendant in his hand, twisting it absently. Every second without Lyra made the fire beneath his skin grow hotter. Every heartbeat carried a pulse of rage he could not contain. The texts in front of him glowed faintly under the cold lights, ancient scripts written in a language only the Virex bloodline could read. "When the dragon heart beats for a mortal soul, the sky shall burn and empires fall. Only the chosen vessel can calm the beast, or awaken it fully." Kael's jaw clenched. The prophecy was clear. Lyra was not merely someone he loved. She was the key, the catalyst, the only one who could touch the dormant dragon inside him, soothe it, or let it consume everything. And she was gone. He dropped the pendant onto the steel counter. His golden eyes flared brighter, and the heat beneath his skin surged. He could feel his muscles tense, his senses sharpening, his ancient instincts stirring. The dragon within him, sealed by centuries of control, had begun to stir, drawn by the absence, by the ache of longing, by the bond no force on earth could sever. "Find her," he growled, voice low but commanding. Digital maps lit across the table. Every security feed, every satellite, every private transport route he controlled began to reorganize. Analysts, informants, hackers, and mercenaries all became pieces in a single lethal strategy. But Kael did not pause to calculate casualties or political fallout. He did not care about headlines or diplomacy. All he could think about was her, her scent lingering in his rooms, the soft warmth of her hand against his chest, the way she had laughed at him for skipping meals, scolding the most dangerous man in the modern world like he was just a stubborn boy. His fingers trembled as he touched the place on his ribs where she had pressed her palm, checking his pulse. The heat flared beneath his skin again. He could feel her somewhere, restrained, waiting, afraid. And the dragon within him roared. The fire beneath his flesh burned brighter, crackling through veins and nerve endings. His heartbeat synced with a force older than skyscrapers, older than empires, older than humanity itself. The dragon did not care for borders, for governments, for collateral damage. It cared for her. He slammed his fist against the table. Screens flickered, data streams glitched. Power grids in 3 districts quivered. Lyra was the key, and he would stop at nothing to reach her. The prophecy had predicted fire. It had predicted chaos. It had predicted destruction. But it had not predicted what would happen when love guided the flames. Kael smiled faintly, lips tight with anticipation and fury. The dragon would awaken fully, but only for her. And when it did, the world would learn what it meant to fear a man who loved with the heat of 1,000 fires.
The city trembled under the weight of Kael Virex's wrath. By midnight, every street, every tower, every network responded to the pulse of his command. Traffic lights froze mid-intersection. Power grids shuddered. Helicopters screamed through storm-darkened skies, cutting through the neon haze as armed units scrambled to maintain order. Surveillance drones hovered, only to vanish in bursts of flame when a single command from his encrypted system reached them. Kael did not move like a man. He moved like a force of nature. Golden eyes flared with a light that made even the tallest buildings feel small. Muscles coiled, every fiber of his being taut with the fire that had slept for centuries, now awakened by rage and longing. Lyra's name was a chant in his mind, echoing with a resonance only he could feel. Every second apart twisted his heart tighter, stoked the fire beneath his skin, and sharpened the senses of the dragon within him. "Find her," he whispered, voice low and deadly, carrying through empty streets and broken alleys alike. It was a command, a prayer, and a threat all at once. Private armies scrambled under his orders, rival syndicates collapsed in chaos, and corrupt officials cowered behind screens they could no longer control. Buildings trembled, glass shattered, and sirens wailed as entire districts bent to the force of his hunt. Every strike, every motion was precise, destruction controlled, yet unstoppable. And yet, amidst the carnage, Kael felt her heartbeat, a faint pulse, almost imperceptible, but it tethered him. Across the city, across barriers, across impossible distance, he could sense her, frightened, bound, alive. Every instinct honed, every surge of fire inside him responding to the bond they shared. The heat beneath his skin became unbearable, muscles burned with tension. His eyes glowed brighter than the city lights, casting long shadows across concrete and steel. The dragon within him roared for the first time in centuries, breaking through the remnants of human restraint. Every building in his path, every street, every digital network, all became an extension of him. He was not simply moving through the city. He was the city. The storm, the fire, the chaos, all drawn toward one target, Lyra. He could almost see her, a fragile warmth against the cold darkness, and the ache in his chest sharpened. It was agony, desire, and devotion wrapped together.
He would tear down the world, dismantle empires, collapse networks, and shatter walls if it meant holding her again. Kael Virex was no longer restrained by man or law. The dragon had awakened, and the woman who had softened his heart, the vessel of prophecy, was worth every firestorm, every ruin, every tremor beneath the city. Because he did not just want her back, he would destroy the world to ensure she would never be taken from him again. The storm had taken the skyline. Rain hammered the city like a relentless drum. Thunder rolled over the skyscrapers, and lightning split the clouds, illuminating the chaos Kael Virex had unleashed in his relentless hunt for her. He stood atop the tallest tower still standing, golden eyes glowing brighter than any neon below. His heart pounded, not from exertion, but from the searing need to find Lyra, the woman who had stolen his fire and tamed the dragon within him. She was alive. He could feel it. Her heartbeat, faint but insistent, pulsed across the distance like a tether through the storm. Every instinct in his veins, human and dragon alike, screamed toward her. The facility where she had been held, hidden in an abandoned industrial district, lay before him. Surveillance arrays, guards, and automated defenses had collapsed in the wake of his fury. Every obstacle had been erased by fire, shadow, and digital dominance. The city below trembled, a mirror to the storm within his chest. He landed inside the facility without a sound, a ghost in gold and shadow. The air was thick with fear and antiseptic. Lyra's scent, faint, delicate, impossible to ignore, guided him like a living map. His pulse surged. Heat crawled across his skin, golden scales faintly flashing beneath the human guise. The dragon had awakened fully, and the world would never be the same. "Lyra," he growled, low and dangerous. "Where are you?" A whisper answered him. "Kael?" She was in the far corner, bound to a reinforced chair, eyes wide but determined. Her hair clung to her wet face, her lips trembling as she met his gaze. Fear and longing collided there, and it shattered something in him. He stepped forward, every movement deliberate, predatory, magnetic. Guards tried to intercept, but a wave of golden heat swept through the room, sending metal doors flying, cameras exploding, and every living intruder scrambling. The dragon's fury moved through him, unstoppable, primal, consuming. Kael knelt before her, brushing wet hair from her face. His hands were trembling with rage, with love, with the need that had driven him across a city in flames. "You are mine," he whispered. "I will never let them take you again." Lyra's breath caught. She had feared him in the past, feared the power that could annihilate entire blocks in an instant. But now, she understood. She had always understood, in the small gestures, the lingering touches, the warmth beneath the fire. And now, even as his golden eyes glowed brighter than the lightning outside, she saw him as the man he truly was. The restraints fell from her wrists under his touch. He lifted her effortlessly into his arms, skin brushing against skin, warmth against warmth. Her pulse thundered against his chest, a rhythm that calmed the fire in his veins just enough for him to breathe. "You're alive," he murmured, lips brushing her temple. "You're really alive." "I knew you would come," she whispered back, voice trembling with relief, and something deeper, something unspoken. Outside, the storm raged. The city trembled beneath the unleashed dragon. But inside that small room, the world shrank to just them. The fire, the fury, the prophecy, all melted away beneath the simple truth. They belonged to each other. Kael's wings unfurled instinctively, golden and immense, brushing the ceiling and carrying the faint scent of molten flame. He did not need to leave the building to protect her. She was tethered to him now, her presence calming the dragon that had nearly destroyed the world in his desperation. He pressed her against him, lips brushing hers in a kiss that held every rage, every longing, every unspoken promise. Her hands clutched him tightly, feeling the heat, the pulse, the power that only she could ever tame. The prophecy had spoken of fire and destruction, of empires falling and the sky igniting, but it had not accounted for love strong enough to calm the dragon, to restrain the chaos, to make the man beneath the monster kneel not in submission to the world, but in devotion to the woman who had awakened him fully. Kael lifted her into his arms once more. Together, they stepped toward the broken city outside, not as conqueror and victim, but as two souls bound by fire, passion, and unbreakable love. The world had survived the Dragon Lord's awakening, because love had tamed the beast.